Production.
What's poppin'? Let's take a look at Wonderfi technologies here, right? So we got three major points, make that four major points on this chart that we should be paying attention to, right? First and foremost, we have back in November 2022, a very large increase in price. And that comes in from the low of 16.5 cents, right? So that level I have marked out because it looks like right now we're trying to hold that level again with larger volume coming in. So we've seen a few big spikes in volume coming in, and they all happen to be around 16.5 or higher. That's something I want to pay attention to in case that could lead to indications that there's like institutional purchasing at those prices, etc. Like things like that I kind of think are, worth paying attention to. We have this low that we marked in. The very low is at 11 cents, right? So that could be a potential place where we revisit in case we want to make a double bottom on the chart, in case BTC ends up collapsing in price a little bit further, although we're on like over a 25% rip in the past 3 days, along with, some banks in the US. Pretty much there's a bank run going on where the banks are defaulting essentially because they have too much leverage. So the government is coming in to essentially bail them, like some of them, like from what I understand, the Silicon Valley Bank. They're being bailed out essentially, where all the depositors who had money in them, and this is like a pretty much a wealthy bank. People who were depositing this had like over 250,000 plus, right? So essentially this bank made a bad trade against government bonds, and that essentially caused them to default. So they got liquidated, and now the government is bailing them out, or their customers out. That has led to kind of this increase in price in Bitcoin, which I think is interesting to point out. So will Bitcoin be the leader here, and then these crypto related stocks follow in days to come? So that's something I think is pretty interesting, right? The third point that I think is pretty important is that we've marked this real high, and that we could move it down slightly, but we've marked the high at 43 cents, and that happens to be a previous support zone that we were trying to hold for a while until we broke below and it became resistance. So it's been resistance one major time, two major times here. I think that's something we'll have to pay attention to in the future if we do end up increasing in price around that level. It's still not a guarantee depending on market conditions. Now, this fourth level that we want to pay attention to is that 21 cent range. Why I think it's important is because we happen to have a massive gap down, and that was on January 23rd. And ever since then, we've been trying to break above the 21 cent range, but have failed at least 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So now it looks like what we're doing is we're in this range where we're trying to find out, is it going to be a base? Is it going to be support? We're waiting because no one really knows what's going to happen. So I'm thinking we do something like this, potentially fill the gap, create another range before we make our ways up towards that 30 cent, 40 cent level, right? That's going to take time, I think. What I do think is interesting is the increase in volume defending that 16.5 cent zone, which would validate this low, higher high, higher low pattern, which would indicate that essentially this trend is changing. It's just taking time to develop. So that's the breakdown on Wonderfi Technologies. I'll keep you guys posted within the weeks to come. But let's see if Bitcoin continues to rip, because then that would be probably the most bullish scenario in regards to how Wonderfi and other crypto related stocks are going to act. Peace, guys.